We're here at the historic Bohemian Cavern nightclub in Washington, D.C. to hear the great veteran jazz piano player Larry Willis and his quintet. This is Beyond Category, and I'm Eric Felton. We're going to sit down and talk with Larry about his career, which has stretched from the hard bop of the 60s to the jazz fusion of the 70s and into jazz standards and beyond. But before we talk to him, let's go check out some of the music. Larry Willis, fantastic.
Hi, Eric. How you doing? Thank you.
That was killing.
Thank you.
So tell me about that first tune.
Blue Fable is a song that I learned many years ago for a record date that I did with Jackie McLean.
And Jackie McLean was really where you got your start as a jazz piano player on the national scene.
Yes. He gave me my first record date. He was the first one to take me on the road. And he was always like a second father to me. And, you know, I've always been very, very, and still remain very, very close to the McLean family. And what can I say? Jackie was just, he was the man, you know.
And yet you hadn't always planned to be a piano player. That's not really where you were headed at
That's
first.
right. You know, when I was in high school, I was a voice major. And I went to Manhattan School of Music as a voice major. And
so you're thinking classical voice.
Absolutely.
You were going to be an opera singer?
Yeah, but those notions faded fairly quickly once the jazz bug hit me.
Huh.
You know?
And how did the jazz bug hit you?
There was a fellow who lived in the next building from us in Harlem who brought over a Miles Davis record called Kinda Blue, and it changed my life forever.
Now recognized as probably the greatest jazz record ever.
Ever, yes. Yeah. And I'm very,
What about that record grabbed you when you heard it?
It was very, very sophisticated harmonically, but above all, the simplicity. Miles proved that less is more. There's not one song on that record that where the melodies consist of more than 5 notes.
And a lot of jazz musicians nowadays who play lots of notes all the time, and is that something you think people should think about? Is, you know, trying to strip back a little
Music
bit?
is nothing but a song, and when I remember hearing an interview that someone was interviewing Miles, and he made a very, very poignant analogy. He said the notes you play and the chords you play are there to fertilize the music. It's like putting lemon on fish. And if you put too much lemon on the fish, you're going to lose the taste of the fish. And the human ear, you know, the lay human ear is just not equipped to take in and decipher all of that information, that bulk of information. So the fewer notes you play, the more you're going to say.
Well, you've also had such a varied career as a jazz musician and as a pop musician, and you know, playing on hundreds of great jazz records, yes. And then you also toured for some 7 years with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, one of the great rock bands of the late 60s and the 70s. And what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I gravitated to that band because, first of all, I think Rolling Stone once said about us, we had more degrees in music than any rock band in history. The level of musicianship in that band was very, very, very high. They were just very, very gifted and eclectic in their tastes, and could take something like God Bless the Child and really make a very interesting, you know, and make something interesting happen with it.
Mixing a great jazz standard with the rock of the moment.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And when you were in that band, all sorts of great people came through. Jaco Pastorius, the great bass player, you guys discovered him.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And Joe Henderson was in that band, and great trumpet player Lou Soloff, and Randy Brecker was in. He wasn't in the band with me, but he was also there, and very gifted alto saxophonist whom I also went to high school with. Was one of the principal arrangers in that band, Fred Lipsius. And, you know, and Bobby Colombi, the drummer, came from a family that was very, very immersed in jazz. His brother Harry was Thelonious Monk's manager. And his brother Jules was a jazz record producer.
So from having this experience playing jazz rock fusion in a pop-oriented band, but you've also then had this great career in jazz and playing jazz standards as well. And your most recent record is a solo record,
yes,
where you do a number of beautiful standards. You know, the title tune is one of my favorite tunes.
Okay.
This Time the Dreams. I mean, could you play a bit of that for us? beautiful, beautiful. There's so much life in that music.
It is,
you know,
yes,
and
yeah.
so much knowledge of life. You know, I think about how when you first came on the scene as a piano player, you hadn't even really been playing piano that long,
No.
just a few years.
Yeah.
And now you've had this wonderful career that's stretched over 40 years. What have you learned in your playing as a mature artist that you couldn't have known, however much you learned about the piano in the course of a couple of years?
That the more I learn about the piano, the more I realize I don't know. And that keeps my interest in this, because the world of music is infinite. And this instrument itself is such a challenge, because every time I sit down at this piano, the odds are always 88-10, and they don't get any better.
So it's an adventure, but a challenge.
Yes, it's everything you could ask for, and if you give to it and you accept it on its own terms, it gives you back something.
Well, let's see if we can get the band back up and have you guys do another tune. What would you like to play for us?
There's a piece that our trombonist, Steve Davis, wrote. I have a very, very dear friend. I don't know how much you're into baseball, but he played with the New York Mets. He lives in New Orleans, and his name is Ron Swoboda. And I went down to play at a convention that the record company had sent me down to do. And Ron took me around the lower Ninth Ward. This was after Katrina. And I think that affected all of us, especially our trombonist Steve Davis, and it inspired him to write this song.
Fantastic. All right. And this is a tune called
A Prayer for New Orleans.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Well, thank you.
I love the melodic clarity of that tune. Just it's such simple statements that are profound simple statements.
Well, sometimes the most profound things are the simplest things. For example, the word no. That's a complete sentence. Just those two letters.
Important words.
And very, very important words.
Yeah. So now that was a tune that was written by Steve Davis,
yes,
the trombone player.
Yes.
And you're on several of Steve Davis's records where he's the leader, and he's on a bunch of records where you're the leader. And it makes me think about how you've been a supporting player on so many records, and you've been a leader as well on your own dates. What's the difference? How do you approach it musically between being in the supporting cast and being in charge of things?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm going to make an analogy towards using basketball as an example. One of my favorite role models as far as having a band is the Boston Celtics of the 1960s. Not really anybody with superlative talents like in the way of a Michael Jordan or LeBron James, but they all played together and they all supported one another, and that's one of the nicest things about playing in this context. And being a band leader sometimes can really be a pain in the neck. But
you have to worry about whether guys are going to show up.
Well, yeah, I don't worry about that because I don't want people around me who are irresponsible. Aside from the talent level, I try to pick people who come with the proper attitude about things, so that I don't have to worry about that. I have to deal with that because we're all adults here, and to treat this music with the respect that it deserves, because a part of that is having to be on time. And I became a band leader, simply, very simple. I became a band leader in the vernacular of a Miles Davis because I don't like anybody telling me what to do. So
you got to run your own show a bit in order to do exactly the music you want to do. Now, you've been in a number of what people would call jazz eras, the sort of hard bop, post bop scene of the mid '60s to the late '60s, to the jazz fusion scene, and you have a great record of your own, Inner Crisis. I think that record, I love that record, the fusion record, and then straight ahead jazz as well. So you've seen jazz go through all sorts of changes.
Yes,
where do you think it's headed now?
That's a very, very good question. Jazz is conjunctive with art, and art is a reflection on the times we live in, and we're living in some very, very shaky times right now. When you look at the landscape of the world, I really couldn't properly answer that question because I try to live my life and look at things one day at a time, and not to try to, I have my aspirations and my dreams and things that, I would like to see happen. But yesterday is over, and tomorrow I don't know about. So I try as best I can to live in the moment as much as I can.
The moment is drawing toward the end of the time we have, and but
I've had such a great time.
It's great talking with you, and hearing so much great music. I'd love to maybe sit in and play something with you.
Why not? We would love it.
Well, what should we play?
Well, I wrote a blues about a band or a band's social demeanor, and I won't name the band. But I call this song "Insidious Behavior."
And this is a blues.
It's a blues.
And how important is the blues to jazz music?
It's important to all kinds of music because it expresses the full gamut of the human condition. A lot of people are under the misnomer that blues has to be maudlin, and it has to, oh, my woman left me, or my woman left me and took my money. You know, it doesn't always have to be like that. You know, it has a sense of humor. It covers the whole gamut.
Great. Well, Insidious Behavior. Larry Willis, thanks again.
Thank you, Eric, so much.
Insidious Behavior. Wow, what fun playing with those guys. I'd like to thank Steve Davis on the trombone, Joe Ford on the alto saxophone, Steve Novosel at the bass, Billy Williams on the drums, and of course Larry Willis at the piano. I'd also like to thank the historic Bohemian Caverns Jazz Nightclub in Washington, D.C. I hope you had fun. I sure did. My name's Eric Felt, and I hope you'll join us again for more good music on Beyond Category.